for this practice, we are going to roll out different parts of our body using a ball. So I'm using a rubber yoga tune-up ball. If you have something similar, you can use that, or a tennis ball, or something that has a little bit of give to it will be great. So the purpose of rolling is to release tight, tense tissues so that when we go into our movement practice, we can feel more, we can feel where there's restriction, we can feel where there's ease of movement, and we can work on our mobility. So rolling can feel great, but it's not necessarily a long-term solution in and of itself, but it does feel good, so we're going to explore some of the movement. So before we begin, whether you're in sitting or standing, let's just take a moment to check in with ourselves and notice how we're feeling. Where is there tension? Where is there tightness? Is there pain anywhere? And notice your breath. If you're in standing, maybe beginning to sense the soles of your feet against the ground. If you're in sitting, feeling into the parts of the body that are in contact with the ground. And then for the next couple moments, consciously focusing on your breath, feeling the air coming in through the nostrils, moving into your torso, into your ribs, and the breath coming back up and out the nose, becoming air again. So we're just setting a little baseline, noticing where we're starting from, so that as we practice, we can grow more awareness around what's working for us, what's not working for us, and so on. So let's begin. Position yourself near a wall or have a chair nearby if you have some challenges with balance. And we'll start with the ball under one foot, and we're just going to start to roll out the surface of your foot. And you control how much pressure you put down into the ball. That's why rubber balls are nice. If you're using something like a lacrosse ball, there's not a lot of give, and there can be some tissue damage that occurs if we're not careful or gentle enough. So I'm focusing on the outside edges, so the inner edge of my foot as well as the outer edge, working across the ball of the foot, under the toes and the heel. And you can take as much time as you want on each area. Breathing easily in and out through your nose. So notice if there's a tendency to hold your breath. And if there is, you can be curious about that. What happens if you go a little bit lighter on your foot? Does it make breathing easier? Do you have a tendency to clench your hands or squeeze your shoulders as you roll? And if you notice any spots that feel extra sore or extra tight, you can pause and press in and hold there for a few breaths. Or you can keep the movement going. If you don't have a larger ball like a tennis ball, you could use, like a kid's bouncy ball that you get in a pack from the dollar store. They're a little bit smaller and a little bit harder, but they still do a good job for your feet at least. As we get into the upper body, you'll probably want something the size of a tennis ball. So let's finish up any spots that you might have missed on your first foot. And know that you can always come back and spend more time doing this. Okay, coming to standing, notice how that foot feels compared to the other side. Maybe there's a shift or a noticeable sensation all the way up your leg or into your back. And when you feel ready, we'll switch sides starting to roll out the other foot. Notice your balance on this side. Checking in with your breathing, gently in and out through the nose. whole surface of the foot. Checking if there's any clenching or gripping anywhere in your body, the hands, the mouth, the neck or the shoulders. Don't forget to go under the toes. And if there's a tight spot that you want to press into and hold, you can do that. Checking in with your breath again. And maybe even just gently noting how much control you feel as you roll out your feet. If it doesn't feel very controlled, if the ball's rolling around a lot, or if you're really gripping or clenching your body, consider if there's another way to experience more ease. Maybe it's just placing your hand on the wall, or going a little bit slower with your movement, or maybe a lighter pressure. Let's finish up this foot. And then come back to standing and notice how that foot and leg feel. And if you want, you can do a little walk around the space that you're in, feeling how your heels, the balls of the feet, and then the toes connect with the ground. Maybe even pausing for a moment and noticing the flow of your breath. Okay, for the next exercise, we're going to use the wall, and I'll show you a couple, and you can decide which one you want to explore right now. So we're going to use the ball in the side of your hip. So I'm going to come a little bit closer so you can see. So you can kind of go down the side of your hip into the sides of the glutes, kind of across the waistband area. So we're going to do the whole one side. And I like to do this against the wall. It gives me a little bit more control. Sometimes if we're doing it on the floor, there's more pull from gravity, which can make the sensation a little bit stronger. And then you have the pressure on your wrists as well. So using the wall can be a nice controlled way to get the pressure that feels right. And so I'm just slowly rolling. You can go side to side, or you can go up and down. You might notice that certain spots feel more tender than others. So you can always do a press and hold. If you're using a rubber ball, like a yoga tune-up ball, you can press into a spot and then twist the ball. So there's pressure between the wall and the ball and your hip, and you can use your hand to literally like twist the ball, and that might grip the skin and fascia and tissue, and that might just give you another experience, and you can hold it for a few breaths. And still note if you're breathing in and out through your nose or not. So you can always spend more time, but let's switch sides. Or maybe even before we switch, just pause and notice how the hips feel. I actually feel a little kind of pull, a little rotation twist to the other side. So let's roll out the hip on the other side. So if your clothing gets in the way, just move it, hold it away. You might notice that the second side feels completely different from the first side. Or maybe it feels the same. Ooh. you find that you're holding your breath as you do this, it could just mean that you're using more pressure than you really need to. So be where you can breathe with ease. That's where our nervous system feels the safest. And when our nervous system is safe, it's not going into a fight or flight response, a stress response. And that's when healing and learning can happen. That puts us in a growth state. You do little circles. Ooh. So we don't want to feel beat up after doing this. You don't want to feel sore. You want to feel just a gentle sense of spaciousness or release or softness. And then if you want, you can even start to, so finish that side and then come to standing and notice what you feel or what you're sensing. And if you want, you can even start to use it in your low back. So again, leaning against the wall, and I'll bend my knees here so I can access the low back. So I'm just starting on one side of the spine and just gently rolling up and down. So you can see what that feels like. I don't have the best clothing on for this. I should have thought this through a little bit better. And then it's up to you when you switch sides. So we can see if there's any tight spots and what that feels like for you. You might have to move the ball around a little bit. And then similarly, we can start to move up into the mid and upper back against the wall. And so you might need to bend your knees a little bit more. So right now I'm moving the ball up and down between my spine and my shoulder blade. And I might explore rolling it around the edges of the shoulder blade. You can certainly go over top of your blade as well. And that's getting more into the shoulder. You can go underneath the blade. And checking in with your breath again. And so it might feel good. So to go over the blade, you might start to turn your body a little bit sideways. And getting into the back of the shoulder and across the shoulder blade. Checking in with your breath. If there's any other parts of your body that are tensing up. You could even take it along the edge of your arm, the edge of your shoulder. It's not really doing anything for me now, so I'm not going to do it, but you could try it and see. And then when you're ready, switch sides, bringing the ball onto the other side of your back, the other side of your spine. If you have long hair, tying it back can be helpful so it doesn't get trapped between the wall and the ball. Maybe going over top of the blade. And you could also kind of hold and press, and then you could move your arm up and down and notice how that impacts what you're feeling or what you're experiencing. Easy breath. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. All right, let's finish up on this side. And then we'll come back to standing. Notice what you're feeling. Maybe you can see what it feels like to slide the shoulder blades up and down the back, or do gentle shoulder circles. maybe rotation feels a little bit freed up, maybe movement feels a little bit easier. And if that's the case, awesome. And then I encourage you to follow up with some movement to kind of show the body ways that it can move without experiencing that tension or that pain. We'll do one more with the ball so we can experience rolling out the pecs, because the front of our shoulder can get really, really tight through here, and we often don't think about it, but it does impact our shoulder blade movement, which can impact neck, shoulders, as well as our low back and our hips. So to do this, you're going to need a wall, or like the edge of a wall where you can put your head off to the side. So what I'm going to do is start with the ball kind of at the front of my shoulder. I'm going to place it against the wall, and you might need to kind of bend your knees and stick your butt back. So I'm pressing into the ball, into the wall, and then my head has lots of room. So I'm not like, ooh, you don't want to crank your head back, because that's just going to create more strain that we don't want. And then breathe with ease. And you can, I'm going to go a little bit slower with this movement here, because this is quite intense. But again, you can move up and down, or a little bit side to side. And you can do that idea of pressing into the ball and then using your other hand to kind of twist, grabbing. If it's a rubber ball, it'll grab the tissue. You just have to hold it for a little bit. So this idea of like twisting, that's from Jill Miller's role model method. The yoga tune-up balls are hers. So she's got lots of great information regarding use of her technology as well. All right. So you can always do that a little bit longer. And then just notice how that side feels. I mean, I'm going through this rather quick. And then you'll have to switch sides of the wall to do the other side. So you're bringing the ball to the front, the shoulder. So I'm not right on the shoulder bone, I'm more on my chest. And you can roll right along the collarbones, underneath the collarbones. So it's really about exploring this and seeing what feels good, and then skipping what doesn't. And it doesn't matter which way you twist the ball, clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. You could try both and then see if you have a preference. So a lot of this comes down to preference. Okay. You can always do that a little bit longer. Then the final one, if you want, I would probably use like a bigger, I don't have the ball right here, but what you can do this manually, is just use the ball in your hand and just pressing, maybe doing like little circles across your abdomen, especially like right under the ribs. And you can just, you'll be able to feel where there's some tightness, maybe around the navel. And so I'm not lying on my belly on the floor. I think that would be way too much. This can release some of the tension through the ribs as well. All right. Take a breath. Notice how you're feeling. Move around, and if you have more time, you can join me for the movement portion or go along with your day and have a great day.